Welcome, everyone. I'm Joan Ferrini-Mundy, the president of the University of Maine, and I'm delighted to open this discussion of the blue economy in Maine. As a state with over 3,478 miles of coastline and more than 6,000 lakes and ponds and almost 32,000 miles of rivers, the blue economy is critically important to the state. It impacts the lives of so many of our people here in Maine. At the University of Maine and our regional campus, the University of Maine at Machias, our mission is to educate, study, and engage with the public, and we are compelled to address the blue economy topics and issues to help strengthen this exciting venture and area for our economy in the state of Maine. The University of Maine recognizes that it is located on Marsh Island in the homeland of the Penobscot Nation, where issues of water and territorial rights and encroachment upon sacred sites are ongoing. Penobscot homeland is connected to the other Wabanaki tribal nations, the Passamaquoddy, Maliseet, and Micmac, through kinship, alliances, and diplomacy. The university also recognizes that the Penobscot Nation and the other Wabanaki tribal nations are distinct, sovereign, legal, and political entities with their own powers of self-governance and self-determination. We at the University of Maine and across the University of Maine system educate the blue economy workforce through academics, as well as hands-on education and training in our research centers and institutes across the state. The UMaine School of Marine Sciences alone conferred an average of 46 bachelor's degrees, 13 master's degrees, and 6 doctoral degrees per year in the last 5 years. And since the blue economy encompasses such a wide array of disciplines, graduates in many other fields, including engineering, have been prepared at UMaine and UMaine Machias. These graduates include several of our panelists who are now working in the blue economy in Maine. We enhance the blue economy through research, development, and innovation in our research centers and institutes. For example, the University of Maine Ocean Observing System provides observations of circulation and ocean conditions in the Gulf of Maine for those who make their livings in the water and on the water. The University of Maine Center for Cooperative Aquaculture Research develops technologies for farming a diverse range of aquatic organisms and also serves as an aquaculture business incubator. We provide outreach to assist participants in the blue economy through the Marine Extension Team, which is a collaboration between the Maine Sea Grant and Cooperative Extension operations, as well as our other 17 research centers and institutes. As partnerships are critical to advancing the success of the blue economy, we've invited some of our partners here today to discuss the blue economy in Maine and to discuss how UMaine contributes now and could in the future. We're looking for your ideas about how those contributions can be as impactful and far-reaching as possible. UMaine and UMaine Machias researchers from our world-class research centers and institutes are also here to join in the discussion. These centers and institutes include the Maine Sea Grant, the Lobster Institute, the Aquaculture Research Institute, Darling Marine Center, and the Center for Cooperative Aquaculture Research. Thank you to all of you for being here. I hope you'll all find the discussion informative, and I invite everyone to join in with your questions, your comments, your ideas, and your suggestions. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator for the day, Dr. Caroline Noblet.
Thank you very much, President Ferrini-Mundy. We really appreciate you being here today. I'm Caroline Noblet. I'm an associate professor in the School of Economics at the University of Maine, and I'll be moderating the discussion today. My research focuses on working with citizens and consumers to understand the choices we all make about our natural resources. I'm really pleased to be able to conduct this work in my home state and at my alma mater. So a recent Blue Economy event here at UMaine provided an opportunity for researchers to talk about what the blue economy means to them. And not surprisingly, for us researchers, it meant connecting with the Mainers who work and live in the blue economy every day. So now we will watch a short video on the blue economy in Maine, which includes commentary from Maine businesses, government, and others who work in the marine space. This will then be followed by a panel discussion and, of course, an amazing Q&A session. Please cue the video.
The blue economy is the past and the future of coastal communities in Maine. It's really where we get our cultural identity. It's what keeps us financially able to stay here, but also there's a sense of community that comes from making your living off the ocean.
When I think of the blue economy in Maine, I think opportunity. Opportunities both on the water and off the water. And opportunities to take local, sustainably harvested products and show the world the quality that Maine's blue economy can provide.
Maine's blue economy is a job creator, a vital economic engine, and a key to the protection and preservation of Maine's valued maritime heritage. DMR's role is focused on the sustainable management of both wild-caught fisheries and aquaculture products. But it's clearly not enough to limit our focus here. The third area that must be a high priority for all of us in Maine is our working waterfront. The sustainable management of these industries does us no good if there is no way to access them. These three areas are all necessary components of the blue economy, but they will all come with great challenges.
The future of Maine's blue economy depends on supporting small communities, acting on social equity, being environmentally sustainable, and economically viable.
I would define the blue economy as sustainable, resilient, and innovative. Ways for Maine to use our natural coastline assets to solve global needs and create economic opportunity. I think UMaine can play a pivotal role in Maine's blue economy, from preparing and educating the workforce of the future to engaging in critical research to support the sustainability of our marine resources, to identifying new opportunities for renewable energy generation.
The University of Maine contributes to Maine's blue economy in so many ways, improving our understanding of Maine's marine resources through groundbreaking research, by working with industry to improve the efficiency of global supply chains, and by using the latest technology to turn waste streams into revenue streams.
There is tremendous potential for farming sea scallops in Maine, but we got to get everything figured out first. And that is where UMaine has really been providing the scientific muscle to help us figure out what to try and practice and constantly just ground truthing and checking what we're seeing and what we think we know. Where UMaine really makes a difference to us is with the general scientific knowledge and expertise. There can be a big gulf between research and reality on the ground, and UMaine really shines at incorporating industry into what they do.
The intersection of offshore wind and our wild-caught fisheries presents a challenge, yet both are part of our blue economy, and we can't choose one over the other. We would ask the university and any developer to do a better job when it comes to finding a path forward with harvesters. Aquaculture is now slowly becoming a way to diversify. Where originally we saw controversy between wild-caught and farm species, we're now seeing more connections. Lobstermen engaged in kelp farming is a great example of this new diversification. While we continue to focus on sustainable wild-caught species, we have seen the interest in aquaculture grow. Governor Mills supported our effort to expand the capacity within the aquaculture program here at DMR and ensure that we could adequately meet the demands of this growth.
UMaine has been critical to us for research and monitoring, especially related to sea run, species and river restoration benefits and impacts. UMaine researchers have been vital to our ability to monitor the ecological impacts of river connectivity statewide, and especially on the Penobscot River. The Nature Conservancy has really enjoyed working with the Maine Sea Grant Program, which has advanced our partnerships and communications about the importance of restored native fisheries. One other thing that comes immediately to mind is a growing partnership that we and many others have with the university and the Wabanaki Ways program. That's going to be super vital to us all together, bringing Wabanaki ways of knowing into conversations about the blue economy and what matters to a diversity of people.
Best case scenario, 5 or 10 years down the road, All the natural fisheries around now are thriving, and there are young people moving to the state to start up farms in areas where there's no conflict, and you basically have a multi-generational thriving working waterfront community getting built up. The work UMaine's doing and the sea scallop farming we're seeing and all the other species of shellfish that we're starting to farm have the potential to help stave off complete devastation in down east communities. No one's hoping for that. We all hope that everything's going to keep going great as it has been, but we have all our eggs in one basket, and if nothing else, this is a wonderful insurance plan.
Building on strong relationships takes hard work. The opportunity for expanded collaboration between UMaine and DMR are right in front of us. Let's roll up our sleeves and together support Maine's blue economy.
Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed the video as much as I did. As we start our panel discussion, I first want to thank all 120 of you who joined us today. You bring a wide variety of important perspectives, and we are excited to engage with you. During the panel discussion, if you have questions for the panelists or just in general, please enter these into the Zoom Q&A, which is in the Zoom toolbar. An exciting question and answer session will follow our panelists. Turning to our panelists today, I will introduce each panelist and ask that they take about 5 minutes to briefly discuss their comments and reflect on the video. And I'm afraid it is my job to keep you to that timing. First, let's turn to Heather Johnson. She is the Commissioner of the Maine Department of Economic and Community Development, who has a diverse background in the private technology sector, including sales, operations, and general management roles at Nokia, Gateway, and Toshiba. After leaving the private sector, Heather accepted a position as the Executive Director of Somerset Economic Development Corporation and had the opportunity to concentrate on rural economic development. Prior to her role as Commissioner, Heather served as Director of the Connect Me Authority, focused on expanding access to and increasing adoption of broadband connectivity in Maine. As Commissioner of the Department of Economic and Community Development, Heather continues to dedicate her career to fostering economic development throughout the entire state of Maine. Heather, we'd love to hear some of your thoughts.
Great, thank you, and thanks to everyone for joining this afternoon. It's a really great discussion as we think about kind of economic opportunity in Maine and what the economic future and landscape can look like. The blue economy certainly plays a pivotal role in that discussion. As we think about kind of heritage industries and where Maine traditionally has really had the opportunity for kind of generational family businesses, the opportunity to responsibly work in assets that are natural assets, and our coastline is certainly a key to that. There's a great base there, and there's a lot of value and opportunity. And so as we think about what comes next there, there's a lot to unpack in that discussion. And you heard Pat Keliher talk about that those aren't easy transitions. As we think about kind of what comes next, often those aren't easy transitions, but there are certainly some really clear pathways to think about climate solutions, to think about kind of the need for protein globally and what role Maine can play in that, and to think about the resilience and innovation that Maine fisheries have always had. This is a great opportunity as we continue to move forward. To do that, we're going to need a lot of research. We're going to need clear understanding of how to do it in a climate responsible way. And we're going to need a workforce that really is engaged and passionate about the work, and trained and prepared for all of the pieces of that. As we think about what that could mean, I think we should also take in mind processing and all of the added value pieces that need to come along with that. We should be doing those things locally. The more local that we can create, develop, and add value to products, the better it will be for the whole ecosystem. And so I would say there are multiple pieces to this work. We're really excited to see how this continues to move forward. And we look forward to partnering with the university on workforce opportunities and research there, and certainly look forward to working with the industry on, how do we attract those investments? How do we work in partnership with the private sector to make sure they have what they need to be able to move this industry successfully forward? So with that, maybe we can move to the next and wait for a Q&A if that works for you, Dr. Noblet.
Great, thanks very much, Commissioner. I do look forward to hearing. We already have some questions rolling in. So next, I have the opportunity to turn to Curt Brown. Curt is both a commercial lobsterman and a marine biologist at Ready Seafood, a live and value-added lobster company based in Saco, Maine. Curt grew up lobstering off the coast of Maine, which sparked a passion for marine biology. He currently fishes 500 traps off the coast of Cape Elizabeth, and with his master's degree in marine policy and marine biology from UMaine, he heads Ready Seafood's research and development efforts. Curt's research currently focuses on improving both the sustainability of Maine's lobster industry and the quality of the harvest through collaboration with all levels of the supply chain. Curt, it's nice to see you again. We'd love to hear some comments.
Great to see you too. Thank you very much for having me. I'm humbled to be here as part of such a such a great panel, and this is such a great opportunity to speak to something that I'm truly passionate about. I think watching that video for the first time last week and commenting on it prior to seeing it, what I really think about when I think about Maine's blue economy is opportunity. And opportunity can mean so many different things to so many different people, but ultimately Maine's blue economy provides opportunities to people both young and old. I was born in Cape Elizabeth, Maine in 1980 and started lobstering when I was 8 years old. I had a really unique opportunity this summer out on my boat to bring both my father and my 6-year-old son and my 4-year-old daughter out on the boat with me for a day before they got back to school this fall. And we had 3 generations of, past, present, and future harvesters of Maine's natural resources right there out off the coast of Cape Elizabeth. And it was just really unique. And when you think about that, how many places in the world is that even an opportunity? It was really special. So we're talking about opportunities from young to old, from down East Maine to New Mainer. I think here at Ready Seafood, I'm sitting in our processing plant right now. We're putting about 100,000 pounds of live lobster through this facility today. And our workforce is comprised mostly of New Mainers. And that's something that I'm truly, truly proud of. And that's something that is unique to our state and to the blue economy, I would say. Probably one of the highlights of my day every day is meeting someone new from a different part of the world and sharing experiences. It is really, truly an amazing part of the blue economy, and it's not unique to Ready Seafood, I can assure you that. Most people think of work out on the water when they think of the blue economy, but we're talking about everything from accounting to aquaculture and sales to science when we talk about opportunity. So really the sky is the limit for many, many different groups. And when I think blue economy, that's why I think opportunity. And I also think UMaine plays a pivotal role, not only in the past, but even more so going forward in terms of the blue economy here in Maine. Speaking personally from my perspective, after I graduated from college, after I graduated from high school, I thought I had it all figured out and was really dead set on spending the rest of my time going out on the boat lobstering. And luckily, my parents gave me a swift kick in the butt and said, you need to go to school and then you can make that decision. The day after I graduated from college, I'll never forget, I drove to the University of Maine's Darling Marine Center right in Walpole. I was starting an internship with Dr. Rick Wally, who is the director of the Lobster Institute now. And for any of you who have driven down that dirt road down the lower campus, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when I say the first morning I drove down there, immediately realized that this is a place where I want to spend a lot of time. And I was fortunate enough to be part of one of the inaugural classes of School of Marine Sciences dual degree master's program, both in marine policy and marine biology. And pairing those two fields was just really innovative at the time and forward thinking because they're so closely tied together, as we can see on so many different issues to this day. Ready Seafood is one of the largest live and value-added seafood companies in the country at this point in time, and we wouldn't be where we are today without our collaborations with the University of Maine. The Lobster Institute and our company collaborate on projects focused on sustainability. We have great collaborations that are improving our understandings of the early life stages of the lobster life cycle so that we can know what's coming down the pipeline years in advance for our valuable lobster fishery and lobster industry. And our collaboration has turned into a real true industry science collaboration with financial support coming from every level of the supply chain, from harvesters to co-ops to wholesalers to end users, to the point where we can now go on the website of our country's largest seafood restaurant chain, Red Lobster, scroll down to the bottom of their homepage and see 3 different commercials that we made for them. One of them focused entirely on our collaboration with the University of Maine. We focus on projects related to lobster quality. We ship lobster all around the world, and collaborations with UMaine have been a big part of our success in grant awards from MTI and DECD. We work on supply chain efficiency. And I think moving forward, there are some great potential collaborations with the Advanced Structures and Composite Center. We've heard all about the Dirgo, the largest 3D printed boat in the world, in part from cellulose from wood products. Well, cellulose and chitin from lobster shells are very similar structurally. So my question is, when are we going to build a lobster boat from lobster shells? And ultimately, can I test it out? Because I'm going to need a new boat in a few years. So thank you much for the 5 minutes here, and I'm happy to answer questions once we get to that. But again, this is a really humbling opportunity, and I think it's really great that we're all here together today. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Curt. And the questions are rolling in, so you guys are really sparking a lot here. Next, I'd like to turn to Alex de Koning, who joined the family business, Hollander and Koning, Maine Fresh Farm Shellfish, after graduating from the University of Maine with a degree in engineering. His enthusiasm and knowledge fueled the business's growth, leading to the 2016 move into a new, larger facility. Alex's vision led to improved efficient production that shortens the ship-to-shore time so the company can supply customers with the freshest possible products. It's nice to see you again, Alex, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much. First, I figure actually after Curt's wonderful talk, I want to give just a little bit of history. He was talking about the multi-generational side. Obviously by my voice, I'm not from Maine originally. I moved here freshman year of high school from Holland. And in Holland, my family's been farming shellfish since the 1700s. And they've got some shellfish beds there kind of continuously farmed since then. Some of my earliest memories were as a 4-year-old going out on weekend trips, standing in these giant bibs picking the invasive oysters out of the mussels that we were transplanting. It's a very cool to come from this little corner in Holland, this little fishing town. Basically, mussels to us were what lobster is in Maine, and move to Maine and find out, fishermen are the same the whole world over. It's in the end, we all think and act the same way with the best interest of nature at heart. And kind of reflecting on the video we just saw, I thought one of the coolest things was seeing how broad and diverse all our interests in the blue economy are. Yet everywhere you go, it seems to be that UMaine has some finger in the pot. I graduated with a chemical engineering degree, which was supposed to be a straight pipeline to the paper industry, and instead ended up joining the farm. And we went from processing everything in a trailer to a state-of-the-art 4,000 square foot building here in Trenton. And it seems like I see the repeated story for where the blue economy is what enables young people to stay on the coast, to move back here. It is expensive to live in coastal Maine, especially as the tourist economy moves further and further up. And for me, it was, if I wasn't able to work on our farm, I wouldn't be able to live here. And I've got 2 young kids who are already talking about wanting to learn to scuba dive. The oldest is 4 years old, so it'll be a little while. But moving forward there, I think the blue economy is kind of constantly, it is in very big flux right now. Our environment is changing. We're seeing it on the ground. The waters are warming. The predator to prey compositions are changing really drastically. And what we need is good research that is very ground truth to lead the way and help us figure out how to adapt to the new environments, and not just adapt to keep doing the same thing what we're doing, but the new opportunities that are coming out in the on the end. And I know I apparently still have about 2 more minutes left, but I think the time would probably be better spent with Q&A, because otherwise I'll just waffle.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex. And a proud teacher moment, of course. Alex and I were joking right before this that he was in my class longer ago than either of us would care to admit. So at this point, I'd like to turn over to Kate Dempsey. So Kate Dempsey has served as the state director of the Nature Conservancy in Maine since 2016. For the previous 13 years, she helped lead TNC's public policy initiatives in Maine. First as senior policy advisor for federal affairs, where she successfully secured over $10 million per year in public funds for TNC's conservation work in Maine. And then as director of external affairs, where she managed the chapter's policy initiatives, public partnerships, and marketing efforts. She holds an undergraduate degree in government and sociology from Bowdoin College and a master's degree from Tufts University's Department of Urban and Environmental Policy. Welcome, Kate. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here and see some old friends on the panel and out there in the audience. It's pretty inspiring to see all these names. And I will say to the president, my daughter is at least going to the University of Southern Maine. So at least we've got one Dempsey Blair. We're living in the university system. So, you know, so many of the things that Alex and Curt were talking about resonate for me. And of course, the commissioner and I have thought a lot about how to get even more public dollars from the federal government here to Maine. But what I thought when you were talking, Alex, is really about how Maine really still depends, and I think it's incumbent on all of us to make sure our small communities continue to thrive. And I think we are unusual. Every state says they're unique, but I really think it is a special asset of this state. And the way we all can work together is ensuring that industry, government, nonprofits can help lift the voices of those who are working on and in the water. Because, you know, it's the people who see things and experience things know what needs to change. And when I think about there's a question in the Q&A about climate change and the warming Gulf of Maine. And one of the important things that we've invested in at the Conservancy is working with our groundfish fisheries in electronic monitoring systems. That's great for them, the fishermen, because what they're seeing on the water gets recognized by regulators. But then that data is much more relevant to university who's doing research. You know, they don't have data that's coming in 3 or 4 years old. And we're getting much more agile in making sure our fisheries are what we call climate ready. The last thing I'll just mention right now, and I think I too could quickly move into Q&A, is, you know, at the Nature Conservancy, I just think every day about interconnection. So we work here in Maine, we work globally in over 75 countries. And I think what we're most proud of is the way we all do work together, both as humans in our state, but also as ecological systems. And I mentioned in the film the river restoration work we've done together and the research that the university has been part of that really has helped us establish world-renowned baseline research on what river restoration does for our river health and also our ocean health. So my mantra, it's all connected. And so I think about the green, blue, climate, the globe, everything at once, Caroline.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So at this time, we are going to move into our question and answer session. And so if you have questions for our panelists, please put them in the Q&A box at the bottom with your Zoom bar. I will also note that we have some other folks joining us today that may also be able to help answer some questions. So I'd like to actually start with an interesting question that I think that a lot of us are thinking about, and I would invite all four of our panelists to chime in on this when you're ready. And that question is about global climate change and sort of how do we think that these are affecting our ocean, and maybe what work is being done in that area. So would anyone like to speak a little bit about climate change and the impacts on Maine's blue economy?
Sure.
Great.
So we're seeing a lot of impacts in climate change, the least of which is it shouldn't be as warm as it is right now in the water. I was swimming just last week and I kind of regretted wearing my dry suit, not a wetsuit. The biggest change that we're seeing is our mussel seed supply is way less consistent than it ever was before because our winters are just not getting cold enough to kill off big green crab numbers. And even over the last few years, I've noticed, like last winter, I was diving in February and the crabs were still highly active. We don't usually see that. And basically what that's meaning is that our business model had to change very drastically, which has pushed us to have to invest in a new seed collection system, which hopefully we'll get a lease hearing for sometime this year. And basically, we're seeing constant changes with everything. There's different fouling organisms coming up. We're having to deal with tunicates more than we ever did before. They used to kind of stop in Blue Hill Bay, and now we're starting to see them show up in Frenchman Bay, which is changing, especially our experimental work farming with scallops a lot. But it also seems to bring with it new opportunities. Oysters seem to be doing better and better down east than our way. But basically, it does mean that you can't just do what your parents did. We've been a multi-generational company, and there's always a risk of continuing to do what the family tradition said you should do. And we had a frank discussion with the whole family a couple of years ago that we've got to throw that out the window because the environment is changing and we have to adapt. Basically, growth rates are changing, where animals do well are changing, all the predator and prey relationships are changing, and we're having to really adapt very quickly, but at the same time, it's providing a great opportunity to learn more. And if you can figure out what's happening, you can often take advantage of it and do quite well.
Thank you, Alex. And Curt, I think you wanted to jump in as well.
Sure, and that's such a relevant question, as I think we all know, and I'll just touch quickly on it. I think my first introduction truly to the impacts of climate change was in Dr. Bob Stenick's coral reefs class when I was a graduate student, and we went down to Bonaire, which is an island off the coast of Venezuela, and we did research in Belize and Honduras and Guatemala and the Mesoamerican Barrier Reef, and really saw the impact of climate change on coral reef ecosystem where species are really in tune with a narrow thermal range. And it was truly eye-opening, no question about it. And now here we are back in Maine, and we're seeing the Gulf of Maine continue to warm. I mean, if you go on the GOMOOS or the Nirakus website, which I want to plug that as well as a great contributor that UMaine provides. That's the first site I check every morning when I get out of bed for wind and wave conditions, but it also gives us historical temperature data. And this year alone, we're riding the top of the maximum that we've seen for temperatures, both at the surface, at mid depth, and at deep depths. And over time, those temperatures will certainly impact the way species interact. And ultimately, that just speaks to the importance of the research that we collaborate on with the University of Maine, with the Lobster Institute, to really keep our finger on the pulse of how Maine's lobster resource is doing year in and year out at all different life stages. We're doing a great job monitoring the early benthic phase. Scientists at the Department of Marine Resources are doing a great job monitoring juveniles and adults. And it just really speaks to the importance of the on the ground or under the water research that we're doing. And Alex, I think you're right. We're going to spark the next generation of scuba divers because that under the water in situ research is so important to keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on.
Great, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak about climate change? Kate.
I will talk about climate change any day of the week. And actually, one of the crazy things as
I'm not an ecologist. I play one on TV, but I'm a social scientist. And actually, one of the most important things each of us can do in our lives to take action on climate change is talk to people about climate change and how it impacts your life in a very personal way, because suddenly it doesn't become this distance thing, but you're creating relationships. So that's my talk about climate change plug. And I think what the Climate Council under the Governor's Initiative has been really important in its focus is this integration of coastal resilience, community resilience, and making sure, frankly, that our communities are ready for the reality of sea level rise, for our inland state communities to be ready for culverts blowing out. I mean, it's all, again, all connected. And then the last thing I'll just mention is, and actually I'll put it in the chat after I'm done, but Bill Mook at Mook Seafood and others here have been really instrumental in getting off the ground what we call the Shellfish Growers Climate Coalition. And it's been so important because coastal communities now around the country are going down to Congress or on Zoom with Congress to tell them why climate action matters so urgently, and to have business voices in that conversation again as they represent their small communities, whether they're in Sorrento or in somewhere in Alabama, makes a huge difference for action in Congress. I'll put that in the chat.
Great, thank you. Thank you for starting us off with some great questions from our audience. I encourage you to continue putting them in the question and answer section so that we can be on your question. We've heard folks talk about both in the video and from our panelists that there's a lot of opportunities with respect to our blue economy. And one question we have from an audience member is whether or not that Maine's blue economy might be ready for additional foreign investment. And so if anyone would like to speak to that.
Maybe it's a place I can start. It's certainly, I think as we think about workforce in the blue economy and moving forward, you've heard both Alex and Curt talk about families and family learning, like from the ages of 4 and starting really early, which is amazing because that is part of the heritage of our state. I think additionally, we're seeing needs that are at a much higher level. Curt, you talked a little bit about all of the diversity in your workforce and how you're making accommodations and trying to bring people in to make sure you have the staff that you need and that you're doing incredible things to train them and really help them progress and grow. And I think that's a place the university can really participate in as well. So I think there are a number of ways to think about this. Financial investment is one of them. Human resource capital is one of them. Markets are another, right? The more we can produce food locally and consume it locally, right? You help with climate, you help with local supply chains, which are critical now for our economy. So there are lots of reasons, I think, to be very open about how we grow this space and how we have the right workforce and the right investment portfolio to get us where we need to go. So I would say, we need to keep thinking about that. We need to keep moving that forward and be very thoughtful about all the aspects of the development of this economy as we move forward.
Great, thank you. Would anyone else like to chip in on investment? Okay. So we have another question from one of our attendees, and they noticed a real expertise here with respect to Maine's blue economy and food products, but they were wondering if any of you could talk a little bit about maybe some blue economy products that are non-food, some opportunities that you see there. I don't know if anyone would like to chip in on that.
I can jump in real quick, and I mentioned it a little bit in the chat earlier. One of my roles here at Ready Seafood, when we're putting through 100,000 pounds of live lobster every day through our processing plant, we end up with a heck of a lot of lobster shells, and traditionally those have ended up in the dumpster or in landfills or compost. But when you take apart the matrix of those lobster shells, there are some really valuable components to those that aren't edible but are hugely useful from many, many different perspectives. The chitin and chitosan in lobster shells is a biopesticide, it's a biofertilizer, it's antibiotic. And so when you talk about opportunities for non-food related aspects of the blue economy, the first thing that jumps to mind, I mean, I was being sarcastic about a lobster boat made out of lobster shells, but only partly sarcastic, because there is that potential and well beyond that too. I mean, you talk, like I said, biopesticides, biofertilizers, the antibacterial components. The US military uses chitosan in wound dressings. There are opportunities. We're collaborating with a medical group down here in their innovation cohort on developing bio-based medical grade delivery systems for drugs, because there's the move away from plastics, and it's just really exciting to think of all the expertise that the university could bring to bear on this issue alone. I myself am an ecologist, and most of my time is spent underwater when I'm doing ecology. By no means am I a chemist or a physicist, where we really need that expertise in terms of developing these new products. So I think there's huge opportunities, and I really think that's the way of the future, turning what are currently potentially waste streams into revenue streams.
Thanks, Curt. That's really valuable. Commissioner Johnson?
We certainly are seeing models for this across the world too. And so there are lots of places for us to learn how to take value out of all of the pieces, what we might use as waste streams now. And so I think there's a lot of work going on there to try to make sure that is a full circle process. So that's a great place, I think, for the university, for the private sector and the public sector to kind of work together.
Excellent, thank you. And in our attendees' question, they wanted to talk a little bit about energy also coexisting on our main areas. And so I don't know if anyone would like to speak to that. I can tell our attendee to answer their question that a lot of us here at UMaine, myself included, do research in that area. So great question. Turning to our questions, we also have some folks who are joining us that would like to know about opportunities that you folks see for partnerships with, companies in Europe, some places where they might be able to contribute to Maine's blue economy.
If I may,
my apologies.
I'd say this. I say this as a foreigner. It is. I was not born in the US. In the blue economy, fishing communities tend to be very close. And it took about 5 years before it was even accepted that we weren't leaving every winter. And I'd say there is always opportunity for investment. But if anyone is going to be going that way, make sure to do the public outreach and public on the ground research ahead of time. Because Mainers are by nature stubborn people. I don't think many would disagree with me there. And someone from outside coming in saying how things should be done is bound to raise everyone's hackles, even if the proposal in itself may be a very good proposal. Just the social aspect will be much harder there than the business management or ecological aspect, is my feeling.
I would just add, much less on a business sense, but it does feed into that, is I thought this is what you're going to say, Alex, is our North Atlantic fisheries, sea-run fisheries, go back and forth across that great big ocean. And I think the more we can continue to say, how does the work that we do here in Maine, the actions we're taking, again, like river restoration, is creating fishery systems that are more sustainable and are going to help the Gulf of Maine thrive. And that's particularly urgent in the face of climate change. So Alex, is great that you just said that, because sometimes, maybe our stubbornness gets in the way, but we also really all believe in Dirigo. So I think the more we can see our stubbornness as an opportunity to say, like, we have really great ideas here, let's share them out. And let's hear from others who have tried it in other places. That's, for me, the most fun of working for a big organization that's global, as I learned from fishermen in Indonesia as well as Port Clyde. So let's use our stubbornness to our advantage.
Yeah, and I'll just follow up quickly. I think we're that stubborn where we would reinvent the wheel if we had to, but learning from others across the pond and not having to reinvent the wheel, even though we think we probably can, is a really great opportunity. Learning from others who have already gone through what we've gone through and sharing our experiences back with them. Those create opportunities.
I mean, to bounce off that, Curt, the all our work with experimental farming of sea scallops kind of bounced back from a 2009 trip to Japan. I text message on a weekly basis with various Japanese researchers and fishermen regarding what we're seeing with ours and what they're seeing with their scallops and the differences and similarities. So those opportunities for international partnership are very strong.
I love these perspective panelists. Thank you. And I love hearing that we have our folks who are trained in some of our biophysical sciences and some folks who are trained in social sciences, and we're all coming together to answer these questions. So this is really powerful. As a quick time check, because that's why they pay me the big bucks. Just kidding, Gail's getting me a Snickers bar. It is 1:15, so everyone who would like to ask some questions, please make sure and get those in the question and answer box. And I would also say for our audience, our panelists have really talked about what the blue economy means to them. And I would encourage our audience to think about, what does the blue economy mean to you? And maybe share that perspective with us in that question and answer box. And so I apologize, at one point we talked a little bit about energy, and it looks like I might have cut off some of our panelists. So if anyone would like to speak more about that, I can go back to that real quick. Would anyone like to talk more about that?
Alex, were you going to jump in earlier? Because if you are, I can defer to you first. Okay. Thanks. What couple things I just want to add to that conversation earlier is we need to take action on renewable energy. It's like now. And I hate to say, I try to be pretty cheerful most days and hopeful, but the world is actually burning. So we really, as a community, need to figure out how to do this and do it fast and do it well. And part of doing renewable energy siting is, again, listening to the people who live in that system. Here, in this case, if we're talking about offshore wind, it's really important that voices are heard as we're planning, as the universities working on this amazing technology, that you also incorporate, as you said, that social science that you all do so well, of bringing voices into the conversation. I would say when I've seen renewable energy development outside of this region, that's what's different. And in fact, Northern Europe has done a really good job of bringing community voices in as stakeholders in renewable energy, particularly wind energy development.
Thanks, Kate. I just wanted to make sure we had a chance to hear from anyone who wanted to speak on that topic again. Okay, great, thank you. And so we also have attendees who would be interested, if anyone would like to speak about tidal or wave energy. Just open that opportunity. We'll let our panelists consider that then and hopefully get back to you. So given that we have about 10 minutes left, and I know that we want to have about 5 minutes at the end for some closing, I guess a big question that often comes up is, what are the greatest opportunities or the greatest challenges for Maine's blue economy? And maybe help us at the University of Maine understand how we could be part of addressing these solutions. So if anyone would like to help us think about what are the biggest opportunities or the biggest challenges.
I would say that the biggest opportunity really is that the environment of Maine has so much potential to environmentally sustainably feed the country. Like, we probably can't feed the entire country, but I think everyone would be really surprised at how far we can go, especially farming shellfish, which is my bread and butter. They don't take any food, they don't take any water, and they actually clean the water they live in. So you're mitigating a lot of the nutrient loading problems you get from basically coastal buildup. But that leads to the biggest change is climate change is pushing the blue economy to change so quickly, and social license is struggling to keep up, where we have to change what we're doing because nature's changing. But seeing from the outside, when you look at it from someone else's perspective, we have to get a new seed installation. We're asking to put more floating gear in the water, and someone doesn't want to look at it from their summer house. So there's that constant conflict between nature's changing, driving a farmer or a fisherman to change, and yet that change isn't necessarily visible from the outside, and that's where social license can really struggle to keep up. So I'd say that's probably our biggest change, our biggest challenge.
I would say our biggest opportunity is turning my phone off quickly, and then following that up with, we have here in Maine a recognizable brand, not only across the country, but across the world. And I think, you know, as industry co-chair of the UMaine project along with Bill Mook, like we've seen that opportunity, and we really need to work to capitalize on that. You go anywhere in the United States, you go anywhere in the world, as we do quite often, well, at least before COVID, and everybody has a story about Maine, and it's always a positive one. And the products that we harvest and grow in Maine's blue economy are desired across the country and across the world. And so we have an opportunity to bring some of the most sustainable, some of the freshest, some of the most delicious protein products in the entire world to a global market. The challenge associated with that is we live in a constantly changing environment. And I think that challenge provides an opportunity for the university to continue to be a global leader in research that provides the state, the businesses within the state, the residents of the state, baseline data that we can then make decisions on as resource managers, as, you know, industry members, as individuals. And the university has a long track record of doing just that. And I see that as a huge opportunity going forward.
You know, I think the good thing is, right, you can pull groups of people together. You can talk about the difficult issues. We don't always agree, right? But in Maine, we have an environment where you all sit down, or virtually or actually at a table, and kind of work your way through these things, right? We have a lot of people that have clear research, lots of history, and you're hearing it here today. And there's real opportunity. I think people want the products that you know, the Maine economy can generate. And Alex talked about that. I don't know that we can feed the whole country, but maybe that would be amazing. But even if we could start taking some of the products that are flying in from other parts of the world and make those be part of our local supply chain, that meets our climate goals. It helps our economy. It supports local businesses. And done in a sustainable way, right, can really create benefit across the board there. So I think while there are times that are difficult, I think this is a real opportunity for all of us. And I think we've got a great base to work from.
I'll add, gosh, I should spend more time with Alex, because I was going to talk about social license too. So I'm glad you brought that up. So the other thing I will add is, it's really, again, about that how important small communities are to us in Maine, both culturally, but also we weave ourselves together. And that's both an opportunity and a challenge. The challenge is, and I'm sure the commissioner deals with this every day, municipalities have a huge amount of decision-making authority in this state. It's a great thing. And they have very little capacity to be planners, to think ahead. You know, they're very dependent on town meeting and how people react. And so, you know, I know that, again, an outgrowth of the Climate Council work and the federal dollars coming in, that the governor's office was able to bring some money to bear for municipalities to get ready for the reality of climate change. And you know, if you think about resilient humans, you can also think about resilient communities. And I think the more we can help our local communities have that capacity, and those of us who are in bigger organizations can lend our knowledge. And then the last thing I'll say, Carolyn, is another one of my mantras is nature plays such an important part in all of this. So for our communities to be resilient, we need to make sure there's marshes that can move as as the climate changes, that we have seaweed that can be both used for carbon capture and for a product. So my worry always is that people jump to building things. I come from an economic development background as well, and sometimes building isn't the solution. Sometimes it's unbuilding. So that's the one kind of clarion call I will share today.
Thank you all so much. I know the old saying says that time flies when we're having fun. And so believe it or not, we've had so much fun. It is time for us to wrap up. I will say that a huge thanks to all of you for participating, the panelists, the faculty, our audience. I would very much like to thank the sponsors and organizers of the event, UMaine Marine, the UMaine Alumni Association, and the Office of the Vice President for Research and Dean of the Graduate School. We will be sharing a recording of this event with all registered participants. So if you have any other questions or comments, please feel free to respond to that message. Thank you very much, and I hope that you will have a wonderful rest of your day. Many thanks again to our panelists. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.